Nightmares. They plagued Noctis' fitful rest all the way down from New York. Not that they ever left him alone. It was a rare night that he ever slept well these days, and looking around the crowded room he found himself in, he wondered if it showed on his face.
Not that anyone really cares.
The thought crossed his mind as he glanced down at his drink. He ordered it without thinking, but a discreet sniff told him it was just clear soda, not anything stronger. The drinking age in the city was apparently 18, but he didn't want to get carded. Not until he figured out this identification situation.
That meet with your approval?
The asker of the question was the tall man standing behind the bar. The business he'd chosen to sit down and get a drink in was apparently some sort of half-restaurant, half-club called Vale. The man, who he had barely acknowledged earlier, looked more like he belonged to the club section. With his wild red hair, facial tattoos, and brilliant green eyes, it stood at odds with the formal uniform that he and the rest of the staff wore.
Yeah.
Good, good. If the sprites ran out, my regulars would have my head.
You get people drinking soda up here at the bar pretty often?
Depends. We get all kinds here at the Vale. Come to think of it, I've never seen you around before. Are you new in town?
He gave the man a sharp look, but those green eyes seemed to be a mask of friendliness.
Yeah. So?
So, then, welcome to Urbadelphia. Don't worry, it's a friendly place. Once you get used to it. The name's Lee, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Lee.
He hesitated for just one brief moment. Whatever he said now would have to be on whatever identification he bought or forged. He could have picked any other name. But
I'm Noctis.
it would be nice to be Noctis again.
My honored brethren, we come together, to unite as one,
I tell you now, I'm the one to survive. You will never break my faith through my strife. And I'll have you choked down on your own demise. 'Cause I make the angels scream and the devil cry. They will see, we'll fight until eternity. Come with me, we'll stand and fight together. Through our strength, we'll make a better day. Tomorrow we shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
So, Noctis, where are you from?
Lee had been eager to strike up a conversation, and Noctis was doing his best to dodge the more personal questions, while still being friendly.
West, originally. No,
Noctis finished with a quick shrug.
Anywhere specific?
not really. I've been around.
That's cool.
There was a pause and Lee frowned, an unpleasant but otherwise unreadable expression flickering briefly across his face, before it returned to its polite mask.
Hey, if I'm prying too much, let me know. A lot of people who come to Urbadelphia have secrets. Secrets they don't want to talk about. I'm a bit of a nosy Parker, but I know when to quit.
Secrets.
Noctis couldn't help flashing back to the incident at the bus station, the incredible fight between the orange-haired boy and the monster. He had been one of the people that the blonde girl had ushered into the abandoned station, but unlike the others in that station, he had long since gotten used to happenings like that. He downed the rest of his glass of Sprite in one gulp before shrugging at Lee.
Thanks for that.
Not a problem. Like I said, this town's got secrets.
Lee automatically refilled the glass with a smile, and Noctis smiled back, feeling a bit more at ease now.
So then, I guess you're a native? Born and raised here?
Something dark crossed Lee's expression again, and for a moment, the redhead's eyes seemed to flicker strangely. An odd movement Noctis couldn't put his finger on. A subtle tension of Lee's shoulders told him that he asked for a secret himself.
I wasn't born in Urbadelphia. I moved here about 4 years ago. But Urbadelphia is my home, and I know it better than just about anybody else you could ask.
His smile seemed forced for a moment, but then he relaxed.
Didn't mean to hit the sore spot.
Nah, it's okay. It's in the past now.
Lee said that, but moved on to another customer sitting down at the bar. There was no way that Noctis could have known the depth of the secret he accidentally tried to expose. But then again, that was a way with Urbadelphians. Everyone had secrets. Lee thought about that as he took an order and filled it, making casual conversation to pass the time. He recognized the same weary pain on Noctis that he himself was all too familiar with. The dark circles of a sleepless night. The bone-tired voice of a guy with more secrets than he could bear. He took a glance back at him, running over the image in his mind. He was probably about Lee's age, older teens or early 20s. Old enough to be drinking something stronger than Sprite, but too young to look so worn down. Dark hair, blue eyes, Caucasian, maybe a little bit of Asian tilt to his eyes, though. Staring American with everything enough to make it impossible to guess where he's coming from. His clothes were rumpled and his hair wasn't brushed. But if he just come into town, it wasn't any surprise. He had probably took the bus in. People watching was a hobby of Lee's, one he enjoyed. He liked to try to guess the backgrounds of people who walked in. It kept his mind off his own tragic past. Oh, speaking of tragic. The next customer to walk in looked tired and worn too. Now, soothing battered souls was apparently part of his job description, but this one looked like she'd been dragged under the bus. Dirty blonde hair, black shirt, tattered jeans that weren't sold that way, blue eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world. Again, around his age, and again, somebody too young to have the weight of that many secrets.
Rum and Coke, please.
Got an ID to go with that?
Right here.
She fumbled with her wallet for a moment, but passed it over. Aya Bray, 18 years old exactly. He handed it back to her and fixed her the drink. There was something strange about this one, something familiar, but it wasn't his eyes that were picking it up. He resisted the urge to frown as he tried to pinpoint it. Aya wasn't paying much attention to the bartender. The lights and the noise from the club side were starting to get to her, to be honest.
I need to stop coming to these places. Still,
She took a sip from her drink.
the booze is good here. That's something at least.
She glanced up at the bartender. He was looking at her with a curious expression, though maybe staring was a better word. Complete and total concentration written in the furrow of his brow and the set of his mouth.
Is there something on my face?
What?
You're staring at me. What's that look for?
Oh, nothing. Just... I wasn't expecting to meet.
Meat?
The redhead glanced away, playing with his overspiked hair, suddenly looking nervous.
Meet someone like... well, like me.
That had been what his senses had been telling him. The enhanced senses that came with being what he was, what they both were. She was looking at him like she was crazy. She had no idea how she was anything like this strange man. She glanced down at her arm, at the faded scars there, and his eyes followed her gaze. He'd seen those scars before, and understood now why she looked so tired and weary. Detox would do that to you.
What do you mean, like you?
Her fingers were tracing her scars, and he realized that's what she thought he meant. Then he realized that she might not even know. He glanced around to make sure no one was listening before he answered her question.
I mean that neither of us are completely human.
I almost choked on her drink. There was no way he could know about the years she spent in that place, trying to forget the things she thought she had seen that night. The sight of her family being dragged away, or the monster that looked too much like her mother. The creatures.
But then, there were those people at the bus stop, right? They could see it too. That monster that attacked. Don't be silly, Aya. You probably just dreamed them up too, just like you always do.
She needed to keep her composure. He was still staring at her.
I don't know what you're on, but it must be good stuff. Bartenders aren't supposed to sample their own stock, you know.
I'm being serious, Aya. Or maybe you really don't know?
Look, Mr.
Lee Strife.
Whatever. Look, you shouldn't say stuff like that. Someone might decide to put you away, you know.
Aya, look at me.
When Aya had, reluctantly, turned to look at his eyes, she realized the pupils of his eyes had gone from round to oval, slitted like a cat's or a snake's. The hand that refilled her drink to the top was elegant, enhanced by the taper points of his fingernails. Points that were too sharp, too delicate to be natural.
I'm not lying to you. I'm not crazy, and neither are you.
She put a hand to her forehead and rubbed it.
I'm not even drunk yet and I'm seeing things.
You're not seeing things. Most people don't notice it because they don't want to. But you and I are different. We're connected to the other side. We see things that no one else can.
People who see things that no one else can are crazy. That's the definition of crazy.
harshness of her words caused Lee to wince for a second, or was he merely pausing to think of a response? In either case, Aya's meter for people prying into her private life was starting to crack from his consistent questions.
The definition of crazy, huh? How many times did she tell you that? The doctor at that place. But no matter how many pills you took, you never stopped seeing things, did you?
Only if those things aren't there. Only if you're the only person who sees the exact same sight that you saw.
As real as you are.
She threw back her drink as the Evergirl's voice came back to her, but the booze somehow tasted sour.
So tell me then, Mr. Lee Strife. If I'm not crazy, then what the hell am I? What kind of a person sees monsters in the street? What kind of a sane person sees things happening all around her? People she's never met that no one else notices? What kind of a sane person watches a bus station explode into chaos and all but 15 people in it vanish? Watches a punk kid and a quiet girl take out the thing that looks like it came from hell, and then blinks her eyes and a few seconds later to find out that everything's back to normal?
It's never easy to be different, Aya. People look at you with fear and try to tell you you're crazy. Sometimes they lock you up or even hurt you for it.
There was something vulnerable in those green eyes. They weren't going back to normal. They stayed the way they'd been, slit-pupiled, alien, even. They were far away. Like hers sometimes, as she thought about the things that had happened to her. She recognized the telltale look of invisible scars.
What happened to you?
In a sudden turn of tables, it was now Lee who was the one who looked uncomfortable.
Let's just say, sometimes thinking you're crazy can be a blessing. Being locked up isn't the worst thing someone can do to you when the monsters are real.
The words chilled her as she thought back to that night, the night where everything changed. The night she had come home and saw it all, the strange monster that looked like her mother, and the strange monsters that were dragging her family away. Something needed to change the bitter tone of this discussion before she started believing his...
Crap.
Huh?
This drink is crap. I'm far too sober for this conversation. You're selling me cheap rum. If you want this conversation, you need to appeal to me with a real drink.
All right then! What brand doth the lady prefer instead? Aha! Perhaps the worshipping the person got at 3 a.m. variety.
He replaced the bottle and with a flourishing presentation, brandished another.
Or mayhap the more exotic. What did I do last night? Or even the roller coaster to the stars is more the lady's liking.
He uncapped the bottle and began to pour it into her glass, and she smiled, running a finger around the rim of one of her empty ones.
I don't know. I prefer the too hot to handle clothes on the floor variety one.
He choked, almost dropping the bottle, and looked at her with shocked green eyes, and a blush almost as bright as his hair, coloring his cheeks.
Lee,
Yeah?
when...
He glanced down at the glass and realized the alcohol was overflowing. Hastily, he stopped pouring, trying desperately to compose himself. He'd been lost for just a moment in shock in her blue eyes. He shook his head and tried to clear it. She had 3 rum and cokes, but he was the one who was feeling a little drunk. It was stupid. He just met her. But then, half-bloods like 2 of them weren't exactly common.
So, where'd you learn to tend bar? Bible school?
Huh?
Let your cup runneth over?
Hey now! Just because we're both halfers doesn't mean you get to tease me like that.
There you are, back to the monsters and the crazy talk and words I don't know again. Do you really believe in all of that?
You were in the that thing that happened earlier at the bus stop, right?
How did you...
That punk kid you mentioned? He's a friend of mine.
So, it was real?
Yeah.
How do I know you're telling the truth? That you're not just tricking me?
Despite her cynicism, Lee could see the hope in her eyes. The kind of hope you don't dare to feel, because you can't let yourself be disappointed again. He was well acquainted with that kind of hope. The look he was giving her told Aya that he understood how she felt, but she couldn't bear to trust that look. It was hard for people to lie with their body language, and it was harder to lie to her than most people. But that didn't mean no one had ever done it. The fact it was just hard just made him hurt more when they succeeded.
I can show you.
He leaned over the counter, seeming to be pouring a drink or something, but it blocked the casual view of his hands, and so she directed her eyes toward them. She stared at his palm. She was tipsy, but she wasn't drunk enough to be outright seeing things, as much as she hoped she would. And there was no other explanation for what she saw there. A tiny flame flickered and danced in the palm of his outstretched hand. For a moment, he let it sit there, hovered, sustained by nothing but air. Then he closed his hand, dousing the flame, and turned away from her.
See? I told you.
How are you?
That's my power. You probably got one too. The things you see are probably it, though I couldn't begin to tell you what they are. It's the gift and the curse we're born with.
You called me a heifer. What does that mean? Was your friend...
No, he's something else. As I said earlier, you and I aren't entirely human. One of your parents was a demon, Aya. A creature from another world. And so is one of mine. That's what gives us our strength. That's what makes us halfers.
Oh, come on. You can't be serious.
Haven't you felt it too? That feeling you just don't quite belong? A feeling that tells you you're not the same as everyone else. A temper you can't ignore. Vices you can't shake.
His eyes traveled pointedly from the glass in her hand to the scars on her arm, and suddenly she felt the need to cover up.
Don't you dare judge me. It's not like you know anything about me, not like you've gone through anything near what I have. A demon as a parent? It's ridiculous. I'm such an idiot for listening to you.
She stood up and dropped some cash on the table, but he put his hand over hers.
Aya, I get it. I know what it's like to be scared. Here, if you change your mind, give me a call, okay?
He slipped the card into her hand, and she pulled away from him then, trying to ignore how unusually warm his skin felt against hers. She told herself it was the lights, that he had worked a long shift in this weird place.
Don't count on it.
With that, she turned and walked away.
That jerk! All of that was just an excuse to give me his number. I mean, he even has a pre-written card. What a sleaze.
She was irate, for no reason at all, really, as she walked down the streets to the apartment she had rented on a place called Shade Street. Her wrath fueled her steps, further and further towards the downside of town.
He was right, and you know it.
Once again, the little voice in her head spoke up, the instinctual part of her. She ignored it. She slipped the card with the number into her pocket and stalked off into the night, trying to silence the voice that had been pointing out that she hadn't thrown the card away.